Today I rise to speak about an issue of great importance to millions of my constituents in New York, our nation's public transportation system, particularly public transit. This is the very lifeline that millions rely on to get to and from work, to bring their paychecks home every single day to their families at night. Various proposals that have been put forward throughout the course of the debate in both the House and the Senate would actually slash funding for mass transit. The proposal advanced by the House Republicans last month to eliminate the mass transit account of the Highway Fund was a stunning misunderstanding of our nation's transit needs. Cutting off public transit from its traditional funding source without providing viable alternatives is just irresponsible. In fact, former Congressman and now Transportation Secretary Ray LaHood called the House bill the worst transportation bill he'd ever seen. Let me state some clear facts. New York's Metropolitan Transit Authority is the nation's largest public transportation system, operating over 8,000 rail and subway cars and nearly 6,000 buses. On an average weekday, nearly 8.5 million Americans ride these trains, subways, and buses operated by the MTA to commute to work, to visit the city, which generates enormous economic revenue, not just for New York, but for our country. Moving these riders into cars flies in the face of any sound environmental public policy and furthers our dependence on Middle Eastern oil. Increasing costs for our nation's transit riders should be rejected out of hand by the U.S. Senate. I will continue to work with my colleagues to ensure that we do the responsible thing and that we maintain transit funding to encourage the use of mass transit and reduce our dependence on foreign oil. Now, I understand, Mr. President, that we have many, many very difficult decisions to make as we debate this bill, but I think stopping New York's transit system in its tracks is just simply not a credible solution. I also have a few amendments for this bill, and each of them is equally as important and addresses different issues. But the first one that I want to address affects me as a mom of two young boys who I know will want to be driving at 16. Kids all across America can't wait for that day when they get their driver's license. But there are terrible statistics about teen deaths. In fact, one statistic showed that 11 teens die every single day because of car accidents. And I know that every family in America has been affected by those horrible high school tragedies of kids dying in a car accident, on their way home from the big game, on their way to the prom, every scenario you can imagine in your own mind. And so what we have to do is we have to give our teens better tools, better training, so that then when they get to become full-time drivers and have all of the various permissions allowed, that they are ready for that. You can imagine the scenarios in your own mind. As a parent, I know. Think about texting while driving. You can't imagine how deadly distracted driving is in our country. Imagine the young driver who just doesn't have a lot of judgment. Imagine the young driver who has 5 other kids in the car and they're coming back from the big game and they're all excited and they're all listening to music and it's at nighttime. Those are riskier situations that we know if you give that driver more training before they're in those risky situations, that they will be able to handle them better. Experts agree that the graduated driver's license, basically gradually phasing in teens into the driving experience with different responsibilities and different permissions as they get older, is the way to begin to address some of these risks. It's been a proven effective method in many states that have already instituted graduated driver's license. So I think we need a national priority, a priority that says you must, as a state, put in some basic training requirements, some measure of graduated driver's license to ensure that when these kids get on the road, they have the skills and tools they need to keep themselves safe, the passengers safe, and the other drivers on the road. I think as parents, I think as people who set public policy for our nation, we should be making the safety and well-being of the lives of at least those 11 teens every single day who die our priority. And I think this is a proven way to do it, and we can do it. The Second Amendment is something that I think basically increases economic opportunity. Now, New York is unique in that we are a border state, and we share a border with Canada. And there is so much opportunity for cross-border transactions and cross-border commerce. And so all this changes, very simple, gives authority to our states to invest in critical border crossings such as freight and passenger rail systems. By providing this simple change, very simple change, states like New York, California, Vermont, and Texas will be able to choose to enhance these crossings and I think increase many more economic engines to address our tough economy. And the last amendment, equally as important, it's about jobs. How do we create the economic engine to get America working again? Well, one way is to increase our pipeline, actually do better training for jobs that are available. One of the ways we can do that is this pilot program that's already been proven effective elsewhere. It's called the Construction Careers Demonstration Project, Amendment 1648. Basically, it's a common sense, proven strategy that if you take workers who need training, low-income workers, at-risk workers, and give them an opportunity to be trained in the building and construction trades, they find employment, they provide for their families, and we reduce unemployment. So it's a very simple change. It's just a pilot program, and I urge my colleagues to support these three amendments and to really focus on how we can pass a good, useful, beneficial transportation bill which will get our economy moving. Thanks so much, Mr. President. And I suggest the absence of a quorum.